Light, dark, light again, light. Yate Shnai Crankin Shia Toricini Nishlin, Clashe e Bashashin, Nethan, Dine e Dashache, Yai, Tachini Dashanale. Hello everyone, my name is Shania Crank. I am Dene and Namana. In English, that's Navajo and Comanche. I am Bitterwater, born from Red Bottom, and I am Kwahiti. So, Brolly Arts has asked me to provide a land acknowledgement for this afternoon's assembly. When I was in school, land acknowledgements were not common. I didn't know what they were, nor did I understand why we did them. Until I realized I do acknowledgements often. Just as I introduced myself to you, I offered a small personal story of who I am and where I came from. A land acknowledgement is taking the time and space to acknowledge the land we are on and the history the land has. In the state of Utah, we have 5 tribes. They are Navajo, Ute, Paiute, Gosute, and Shoshone. As Native Americans, we are the stewards of the land. The stewards is a person who respectfully takes care of Mother Earth, so in return, Mother Earth takes care of us. One example would be trees. As we provide the tree with water and nourishment, the tree provides us with shelter and fruit. So here I brought with me is my family. Our hand drummer, Lane, is from the Shoshone tribe and the Northern Ute. This is where his family is from and where he is originally from as well. Lane is my cousin, and he is a men's fancy dancer and a drummer. He travels around the United States as well as Canada to perform with well-known drum groups. What he holds is the Native American drum. The drum is a representation of our heartbeat as well as Mother Earth's heart beating as well. When we dance to the beat of the drum. Our first dance that we're gonna have is the jingle dress dance. The one dancing is Bree Esau. She is from the Western Tamok Shoshone, and her daughter is also from the Western Tamok Shoshone, as well as Northern and Western Shoshone, and she is from the Santa Clara Pueblo as well. The jingle dress dance originated from a dream of healing. What she wears is cones. The cones are traditionally made of tobacco can lids. As you can see, they represent various prayers. Tobacco is used in many of our prayers that we have. Hence why we refer to it as a medicine dress, and when she dances, a medicine dance.
Hey,
What you just witnessed was a jingle dress dance, and what was presented is 2 different songs. We had performed 2 different push-ups. The first one was a straight. It's a general song where one would go 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, forward and front, forward and front. As for the second song that you saw, she was stepping to the side, which is a different version of the dance. Right now, we're gonna go ahead and bring up the grass dance. So this is my husband, Joshua Tupuf. He is from the Northern Ute and Santa Clara Pueblo tribe. So the grass dance is a warrior dance. It's originated from the Omaha tribe and is a ceremonial dance, which is connected to the warrior society. It is a fast pace, and it consists of sweeping motion as well as symmetry. So what they do with one side, they do with the other. The grass dance is also known as one of the oldest dances. What he just danced was the grass dance. Now, the grass dance actually started with the first song as a straight song and the second as a crow hop. What he did was he mimicked the movements of a crow. For our last one is a butterfly dance, also known as the fancy shawl dance, and known in a different language in Lakota. This is my daughter, Soraya Tupuf. She is 5 years old, and she has been dancing since she could walk. All of our dancers have been dancing since we could walk, and we've been prepping and working on our moves for a very long time. So we're gonna just see the butterfly dance. Now, the butterfly dance actually has a rich history. Some say that it developed in a dream where one was evolving into a butterfly. Another is actually saying it came from the men's fancy shawl dance. So women looked at some of the men and said, I want to do that too. So they picked up a shawl, put it over their shoulders, and they created a new dance. There is many stories and many things about our culture that we would love to share. Even though we shared a small snippet about it, we're still honored about being able to come here and share it with you. If you're interested, you're more than welcome to come up and ask questions after the show or during the panel. We would like to say thank you very much, Brolly Arts, for allowing us here to share a little bit of our culture and to show you who we are. Thank you.
I'm remembering my beautiful land, Shikeyan Jone Benashni. Right now, in this moment, how I wish that I could be walking through it. The more true assumption that Native people made when they came into this world and they emerged, from where we all emerged from the womb and we were born into this life, they looked around themselves and they said, oh, we are a part of the system. This is all a part of us. This water that's flowing right here, this river you see that's flowing right there, is the blood that flows through your veins. That's what they mean by tope ina. Water is our life.
Picture her, waters of purple, pink, and blue, crusted in crystalline salt deposits, her shoreline a ring of pearls. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, locals speckled her shallows, floating effortlessly in her brine. The Saltaire, the West's Coney Island, waited on vertical beams that rose above her. A railroad spanned the flats from Salt Lake City to the amusement park. Young couples took the train out towards that thoughtless sunset, caught and refracted across her water. Somewhere in these sounds, the murmurs of ghosts, past visitors, making their way to the biggest dance floor in America, Lindy rhythms popping through the static of time. Great Salt Lake beats like a heart, coves like atriums, rivers like arteries, nourishing her, filling her, driving her pulse. Overflow, contraction. Rivers flow into her. Bear, Jordan, Weaver. Take me to the river. Drop me in the water. Drop me into something greater than myself. Disappear me into another body. Great Salt Lake, a body of water. I step inside. I spread myself out thin. The remnants of a prehistoric sea rise up underneath me, inside me, through me. Submerged in this purple brine, I give way to the workings of geological time. Water tumbles gently against my skin and settles salt into my hair, my toenails, and under my breast.
Away from the city that hurts and marks, I'm standing alone by the desolate docks in the still and the chill of the night. I see the horizon, the great unknown. My heart has an ache. It's as heavy as stone. Will the dawn coming on make it light?
Reservoir, a cavity, a hard, cool wall, a line of hydroelectric machines to run through, a tool of reclamation. But what happens when there is nothing left to reclaim because the water has become an apparition? Putting out, pouring out, draining herself. The illusion of abundance always allows for some amnesia. Before terminating in Great Salt Lake, Bear River and its tributaries run through 61 reservoirs, like 61 Hail Marys. Please God, let there be water in the desert today. Hiram, Condi, Cutler, Foster, Glendale, Twin Lakes, Wetson Creek, Wendon, each impounds Bear's water, holding it back from Great Salt Lake. Alexander, Fourth Creek, Larson, Daniels, Manaway, harnessing the power of each drop and subduing the rush of the river into a placid pool. Hold your breath. Cook, Curl, Lakey, Little Valley, Lower North Eden. All the while her pulse dims. You have no choice but to sink. There's a suffocation that occurs when reservoirs well up, but lands cannot cry out like babies do when they are baptized. Both acts still leave me questioning if submersion could ever bring us into the depths of reclamation. Too salty for life, she cannot be cultivated to support crops. She can't be used recreationally for profit, capitalize on her resistance, we thought. Salt mines, brine shrimp farms, we capture fresh water before it touches her and let contaminated runoff flow in. I see her, our life force, depleted in trade for economic growth. And so the logic of reclamation gives way to the logic of destruction. Yet Great Salt Lake continues to bear life. Brine shrimp famously flick through her. An entire city takes her name, and she's the ancestral land of Goshute, Shoshone, and Ute people. 27 species of bacteria thrive inside her, 10 million birds migrate to her every year, and we do nothing to replenish her. She disappears, heavy metals are exposed. With each gust of wind, we take another breath of wasteland. In this American dream of cultivation, she has become caustic to the lungs.
Dis-moi ce que tu penses de ma vie, de mon adolescence. Dis-moi ce que tu penses. J'aime aussi l'amour et la violence. Dis-moi ce que tu penses de ma vie, de mon adolescence. L'amour et la violence.
The governor calls for prayer and rain. Children are kept from playing outside. The air is already thick with poison. Her water's depleted at least 22 feet. I wonder if I left the kitchen sink running, as if the turn of a single spigot could ward off our last breath in a Dust Bowl-esque Salt Lake City. Today she becomes a ghost as her shore creeps further west. Will we live long enough to see the desolation of this valley? But relocation is never a salve for the homesick. No one yearns to return to a home they cannot place. I yearn for the bombing of dams and a glass of water.
Our reality is the abundance. The illusion is that we were ever separated from that abundance. Her abundance.
Growing up traditionally, we were always taught to only take what is necessary for us to live off of. You don't take more than you need, and the way that impacts the way I look at things nowadays is nowadays everybody lives in excess.
The reasons that we have so many issues like the potential poisoning of our air just from the water evaporating is all because we thought the water would last.
Water source is very valuable, and we always tell our kids, our grandchildren, that the water that you have, and you have to use it, manage it you take as little as you can.
So the reason Salt Lake's not doing well is just it's so hot and the water's evaporating, and that means we haven't cared for our planet, and we've been using the water. It's like you're addicted, and you don't consider your mother, and you like hurt her from taking, even though she's meant to give you things. It doesn't mean you just take it from her.
We're definitely out of balance with nature. We're choking the water system off that normally goes into the Great Salt Lake. And so we're all out of balance. So we need to find balance.
The issues that we face is our voice being silenced because of the colonial boundaries in place that displaced us from our ancestral lands, from the lands of abundance, such as here in the mountain range, such as where the lakes are, the reservoirs are built.
I remember going on plant walks with my grandmother around that lake, and she would identify rabbit brush and all these different kind of things that the Shoshones used for food and medicine. And then she would always sing this beautiful song before we left. Hey, hey, ya, na, hey, ya, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya, na, hey, ya. Hey, hey, ya, na, hey, ya, hey, ya. Hey, hey, ya, na, Hey, she just said it's a way to heal. And no matter how careful all of us are, we do things that hurt our environment. And so that was her way of offering up a prayer of thanks and a prayer of please forgive me. And so very grateful for a grandmother who taught me those values early on.
Great salty lake, I see you here. I see you here in the future, far and near. I see you here for generations to come. I see you here for generations more than some. If in my mind and heart you never dry, if in my mind you never evaporate sky high, then you are here. I see you here in my imagination. Despite global and climate catastrophization, I see you here. Your presence projected into the future clear. I see you here. No, no, this is not delusion. This is the Great Salt Lake in the future, inclusion, projectile infusion with this great salty body. I see you here. I see you here, my great salty water, dear. I see you here.
I'll use this one. Well, good evening and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Amy MacDonald. I'm the founder and director of Brolly Arts, a nonprofit arts organization in Utah, and I'm also a co-director of the Illusion of Abundance film. So we're really thrilled to have you here with us tonight. I'd really like to give a big thank you to the Nora Eccles Museum of Art, NEHMA, and the Community and Natural Resources Institute, CANRI, for hosting and presenting us tonight. It's great to be here. All right, we're gonna get set up here. So let me tell you a little bit about Brolly Arts. So Brolly is a British slang term for umbrella, which means by design, our organization is inclusive of all people and all mediums. Brolly Arts was founded in 1995 to fill a niche in a burgeoning art community by championing talented independent artists. We feel that we focus our work on racial, social, and climate justice issues and community development, always with artists at the forefront. We believe that the arts are one of the most non-threatening ways to bring people together and address major issues. We find that artists also help us come together and lay the groundwork for positive social change. We first stepped into the aura of Great Salt Lake in 2004 with our project Contours, whose goal was to create value and beauty for the lake. The project was a smashing success with our outreach efforts, education, and programming events. And images from that project were combined into a short film that was presented by the Tumbleweeds Film Festival just a few years ago. At that same time, with the declining Great Salt Lake, we stepped in again, wanting to help and do our part. And so the journey of Illusion of Abundance began. As with any Brolly Arts project, it takes a village, and this is no exception. Illusion of Abundance began with Sophia Katrubris, who you saw perform and is a performer in the film and the author of the Illusion of Abundance narrative, was researching the Colorado Basin, and we got wind of her writing, and the choreographer of Illusion of Abundance and also a co-director, Sophia Gorder, worked with the other Sophia on the writing, and it was so clear that we needed a choreographed dance piece to this narrative. So we began presenting this work in a number of different places, and the impact was astounding. It was profound, tears, wanting to help, do more. And so I thought, all right, we need to expand our efforts because this has impact, and it's a way to get into the conversation of what's going on in Great Salt Lake, so we should make a movie. So as we were filming and making our movie, a friend from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife said to me, Amy, if you really want to help Great Salt Lake, you need to understand all the systems that are affecting it. So we're enthusiastic learners, and we now know enough to just be dangerous. We're not experts, so that's why we always surround ourselves with the experts. But as we were doing our research, a pattern emerged. And what was showing up, excuse me, is any time in Utah when decisions are made around natural resources, there is never the expert, the advocate, or the Indigenous voice at the table. And we experience the outcome of these decisions that haven't had full representation. So we sought our film to change that and create a film that would change that. And that's what you saw tonight. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to have a discussion. And I'm going to jump right into one of the questions, and then we'll all collect. So it's sort of a statement. I'm going to refer back to the film. In the film, you hear Joshua Dixon, our Dene cultural advocate, say, the reality is our abundance. The illusion is that we were ever separated from the abundance, her abundance. And so we want to look at that. What does that mean? And I think it's the perspective of the way that we live. We can become really disconnected to our planet, to all the living beings on their planet, and we consume greatly, and without always considering our impacts of our actions. And as a tribute to our dear Jane Goodall, who recently passed, she says every action matters, every voice matters. The interconnectedness of us matters. And so I think the abundance is always there. Mother Earth has so many things that we have been given and taken and used. And I think the idea about this is the abundance is there. The illusion that we didn't have it is if we get caught in our own place where we take and we use and we don't think about the planet. And so if we imagine a society that considers the planet every time we take an action, that considers all living beings that are here, and once you start thinking about that, the abundance of what we have is present because we help steward it in a sustainable way by considering the planet, by considering the interconnectedness of us all. And I believe that is how we interpret that statement. So without further ado, Stacia.
Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Stacia Ryder. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology. I'm also the interim co-director of the Community and Natural Resources Institute with Sydney O'Shea, who's in the audience somewhere, but I am blinded by the light. It's my pleasure to share the stage with all of these folks and all the knowledge they bring. And we are just going to go through a few questions, and then you'll see that there are microphones at the front, so we'll leave time also. We'd love to have audience participation. And so I just will first briefly introduce the panelists that we have here today. I have just to my left Senator Nate Bluin, who represents District 13 in the Utah State Senate. Then we've got Kirsten Vignetta, who is an assistant professor in the sociology department here at Utah State. We have Darren Perry, who is the former chairman of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation. Sophia Kotrubis, who is a Salt Lake-based artist and arts administrator. We have Amy McDonald, who's the founder and director of Brolly Arts, who you have all met and who brought us all together here tonight. And then finally, we have Eugene Tapahe, who is an artist inspired by his Diné traditions and modern experiences. So thank you all for being here. I'm just going to jump right in because we've got lots to cover. So, Sophia, I'll start with you, if that's all right. Can you discuss the interconnectedness of land, water, and the food that we eat and how it affects the larger climate conversation? Thanks.
I guess I'll just speak to it directly related to the Great Salt Lake as well.
Sure.
But I think when we are wondering about Great Salt Lake and its future, we're really thinking about the way that we use water as a state and manage that resource. When it comes down to it, the water often doesn't reach the lake because it's held in reservoirs upstream and then used for things we need, right? Like we need industry, we need to build buildings, we need to farm, and our water gets used that way upstream. The issue is we've done too much, or we're not managing enough to keep the lake healthy at a healthy level where we can continue to live healthy lives in the Salt Lake Valley and broader across the state. If the lake were to dry up, right, if we are using water upstream for agricultural purposes, often it's used for farming alfalfa. If we're using our water in that way and the lake dries up, we end up exposing ourselves to a lot of heavy metals that have been left in the lake bed from different industries, letting things seep into the lake. It's been seen as a place for wastewater for a long time. It's also a terminal basin, so some of that is unavoidable. But those heavy metals are exposed and we end up breathing them, and that is one of like the biggest health risks that we face as Utahns, and especially for those of us who live closer to the lakeside. We need to eat. We need water for so many things, and I think at the state legislature level, we are asking ourselves really hard questions about how we can manage water and do better to make sure that we keep Utah safe. And I think we need to really shift our focus and send more water to the lake than we are.
Anybody else want to add on to that?
I'll jump in for a second. I think where we are at the intersection of food, water, and land, we're at a critical point. Each one needs to be addressed: our public lands, our lands use, misuse, water use, misuse, and farming systems, and what we farm and how we care for that also begs to be addressed. And so collectively, we have three entities and interconnected systems that really could use some attention. And I will always say this: the Indigenous voice that has historic land knowledge and wisdom about stewarding the lands that we live on with water and food, that deserve to be heard and work together to come as that interconnected systems like I previously described.
Thanks. That really segues nicely into our next question. An important broader takeaway from the film highlights the different ways of conceptualizing and relating to the environment and our ecosystem. So colonial approaches tend to emphasize natural resources to be commodified, while indigenous approaches focus on stewardship of land and all living beings. Darren, I'll start this one with you, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about how these knowledge systems differ and the value of learning from each of them?
Yeah, they come in sharp contrast. So I teach a class here in the spring called Indigenous Land Stewardship. In the fall, I get to go to the University of Utah and teach the same class. But we talk often about perspectives and whose perspectives. And the current system, the capitalistic system we live under, and what they prioritize. They prioritize profit. And we measure our success by GDP, growth, more growth. I see the governor get on TV all the time, and many of our leaders, and I'm grateful that Nate is here today because he's a voice of reason down there, one of the few. But I see them say, we've got the best economy in the state, in the country. And that's the measuring stick. And so that narrative, though, becomes the thing. And so, but we're at a point, we have limited resources here, and especially water. And I think we're just at a point that we need to start maybe measuring our success by our wellness and our happiness. Quit looking at land as a commodity and water as a commodity that can be bought or sold or owned. Heaven forbid water was ever owned. And start looking at those resources as a relative, something that needs to be nurtured and cared for. So conservation and culture, they're not the same thing. And conservation will solve the problem, but it's not a science problem. It's not a knowledge problem. It's a wisdom problem. We have the knowledge to save the lake. We do. That knowledge is there, but do we have the wisdom? Do we have the value systems in place to save the lake? And so, as long as we measure our success by profit and how much the economy has grown, especially here in this state, we're going to be in trouble. I'm not anti-development, but I'm anti-right development. And we've got to make sure that the decisions we make here in the future will reflect not my happiness, but my children and my grandchildren's happiness, because that's who we're sacrificing here.
Thank you. Eugene, did you want to add on?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question here, and I think it really pertains to a lot of us, but How many of you this morning, when you woke up and you turned the faucet on, did you say a prayer or thank the water? How many of you did that this morning? Am I the only one that did it this morning? That's where our connection is different. I grew up in a small home on the Navajo Nation, and I had to haul water. I had to haul water from about a mile away. I didn't haul it in a truck, I hauled it in a wagon, little red wagon with a handle. We had 2 metal containers that my sister and I would go and we would take and we would go to the well and we would fill it. And we would do this 3 times a week in order to eat, to wash our dishes, to bathe. So we still have many tribes in Utah and Arizona area where they don't have running water. I have relatives who don't have running water right now. So when a commodity that we think is a commodity, right, is not there, we appreciate it more, right? So I think that's the perspective we have. Even us right now, we're sitting in this building. How many of us really think that this is, land? Do we think it's on dirt, right? It's underneath us. There's life. And I think that's the part that's really hard for all of us as we, like Darren said, it's commodity. It's about capital gain. It's about putting prices on things. It's about how can we be better than our neighbor. And I think that's the hard part for all of us. As Native people and as myself, I feel like a lot of that perspective isn't mine, but I can only do as much as I can through my work and my art. That's what I try to produce, is like get you guys to be aware of what water really is. Water is life. You've heard that before. And where did you hear that from? First time you heard that was probably in Standing Rock, back almost 10 years now. And it was Indigenous Native people who actually brought up that. And now all of a sudden we have everyone talking about it, but we're talking about it, but we're not doing anything about it. 10 years from now, that happened 10 years ago. 10 years now, we're still sitting here at the same problems. So I think it's in a sense of not just community and not just myself, but it needs to be a worldly, so we need to solve it worldly, not just here, or not just the Great Salt Lake, because it affects everybody. And I hope, after you heard what I just said, that you turn the faucet on tomorrow morning, that you realize it's a miracle that this water is coming through these pipes, that you get to wash your face. You don't need to wash it just once, but you wash it 3-4 times. You sit in the shower for 30 minutes or so, And we take advantage of that, right? I'm not going to say I don't. Of course, I love taking a shower. But where is the thanks? Where is the give back? And I think that's where we, as people, need to realize, like in the film, we're not part of the system. We are the system. That's kind of how we have it now.
I could just be quick on this one. One of the points Darren made about our economy, we see, and I appreciate the vote of confidence, because I don't always hear that at the legislature, but I appreciate it. But no, we see our economy touted as the best in the country pretty frequently, but a lot of those same ratings that are giving us those numbers are also saying our environment is like 48th or 49th. So there's always a flip side to some of those points that are made, and it's really interesting to see what gets pulled out and what gets kind of left off of that message. So I think there are improvements to be made. There's a balance to be struck, and this is a great conversation about how to hopefully achieve some of that.
Can I just add one more thing, Stacia? I just wanted to add something in terms of the distinction between, right, like Western perceptions of commodification and Indigenous conceptions. And I think like a really illustrative place to kind of see the distinction is in treaties. What did treaties protect? Treaties protected relationships, right? what tribes were seeking through treaties when they were signing these treaties with the United States was to be able to maintain relationships with land, water, other species, right? That is such a different structure than what you see prioritized now, right? And I think that relational component is at the core of what Indigenous knowledge systems value and at the core of what we are lacking.
And Kirsten, I'll keep it with you for a minute, building off of what Eugene said in response to the last question and what you've started to get at as well. You know, often human societies are discussed as separate from the ecosystems that they're a part of. But could you talk a little bit about how we as a people are actually a part of and affected by the ecosystem collapse around us?
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit from my perspective as an educator. I teach classes like environmental sociology. I teach a class called multi-species justice. In it, we talk a lot about Indigenous environmentalisms. We read a lot from Indigenous authors. And I often ask students in those two classes to, like on the first day of class, right, to tell me 10 species they saw on the way to class. And most people can't name one. Like they can maybe say tree or squirrel. And there's the occasional nerd that can maybe name actual species. But there is, right, if you were to, there's been this is like not new, there's this exercise of like children being able to identify like all major 10 corporate logos, but not being able to identify a single native tree in their region. And that happens here at school, right, when I'm teaching students and they're like, oh, like I wasn't paying attention. Right, and the other thing that happens in these classrooms, which are mostly made up of non-Indigenous students, although I've had some Native students in my classes, and you can tell the difference in values a lot of the times, is that like non-Indigenous students, they think that they are not going to be affected by these environmental, like they think like, oh, farmers are going to suffer, Indigenous people are going to suffer, and they see themselves as completely immune to the environmental issues we face, or protected somehow by technological advancement, and by their supposed separation from these issues, not realizing, right, that the air they're breathing, everything they're wearing, everything they're eating, like everything they're doing, right, it's not their fault. It's like at the heart of what our kids are being educated about at, you know, in elementary school, like what are we prioritizing, and does anything connect kids back to the environment, right? And I mean, we are, on a cellular level, completely connected to the environment, right? What is happening out here is happening in here. And then psychologically, right? Like, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of pain and grief in this movie, and you see this loss at the end of it. We are a part of these things, and I think even if we're disconnected from it through this veil, like there's something inside of us that tells us something is deeply wrong. And I think that's part of what needs to be addressed, like especially through education and values.
Yeah, my connection to the Great Salt Lake has almost nothing to do with like the lake itself. I don't spend much time at the lake. I occasionally go out to Antelope Island. I run out there maybe, but it's all about the impacts of the lake, of what it causes on Salt Lake County in particular, where I live. So I mean, I moved out to Utah in 2009 to ski. Obviously, the Great Salt Lake benefits our snowpack by something like 10%, I think. You know, that's 5 or 6 feet of snow every year that we get just based off of the lake. When the lake gets lower, we get less snow, we get less runoff. It's bad for the entire ecosystem there. It's an air quality problem. It makes it very difficult to go out and run, especially in the middle of the winter when there's a nasty inversion. That's a little bit of a different issue, but we're seeing these storms kick up and drag this loose sediment off of the lake bed. And so I think it impacts people in so many more ways than they kind of think about at first glance, especially living downwind of it in Salt Lake County. So I feel like it's interesting to think about how everyone is connected to some of these impacts, but don't always think about it every day.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Amy, to start with the next one. because I know this is a really important question for you. We talked about it beforehand. We know the drying of Great Salt Lake is a conservation crisis, but how can we understand it as a cultural crisis? And secondarily, this is open for anyone, can we and will we make a change?
Oh, this is a hefty question. I'm in the culture crisis camp. And by having been involved with this work now for many, many years, I believe we would not have a conservation crisis if we didn't have a culture crisis. And I think it goes back to what everyone's saying about values, how we see or don't see our interconnectedness to everything. And I was thinking about an example, like we have the second cheapest water in the nation. We live in a desert. We have the second highest per capita consumption of water in the nation, and we live in a desert. And I feel like that's a pretty good example of a culture crisis over conservation, in the sense that we have the cheapest, we use the most, and I recently learned, people are educating me all the time, so I always have these little tidbits, that this year alone, Utahns, knowing that the lake is at a precipice and we have a drought, are using 10 to 15% more water this year for no good reason. And so, cultural crisis is we need to consider the planet. We need to think about our interconnectedness with one another, and think about the idea that one of our Ute contributors said, or implied, is take what you need, but use all you take. And then our Auntie Evelyn, who spoke in her native tongue in the film, was speaking about how when the men came out of the mountains, they would give an offering for things they took, and they would do something to replant or give back. So I think, wouldn't it be great to have a society whose culture considered all these things and managed these things with the values, but with the whole picture? And so I think if we did that, would we have to, like we're begging for mandated conservation right now to say, like, let's do it. If we really considered our impact to all living things, maybe we wouldn't have a conservation crisis. That's my take on it.
Can I just add something?
Please.
We're solving this through the lens of conservation. Conservation looks at data. They look at the problem as a problem to be solved. We're not going to solve it that way. That's not how we solve the problem. When you look at it through the lens of culture, we look at water as a relative, that water has a spirit. We use water in ceremony. As hunters and gatherers, we traveled. We used the salt to cure our meats. So we had an interconnected relationship. It was a relative, a dear relative, that we took care of because it took care of us. And so, look, I've said it 1,000 times. If we approach it from the conservation way, we're using science and the best known methods that we know. And as my good friend Rob Davies says, who's here, the leaders say, well, we'll just figure it out. You know, I'm not sure what's going to happen 10 years from now, but we'll figure it out, because we always have. We're not going to figure this one out, because all the science in the world won't make up for our selfish behaviors. And so this is a values problem. It's a cultural problem. We need to treat it like a relative, not the crazy cousin that we all hate, but a good relative that we adore and love, because they take care of us in a way that we need to take care of it. We live in relationship with it. We live in reciprocity with it. And when you do that, you change behavior.
So I think the crazy relative is the actual word conservation. Just think about it. You approach anybody and then say, hey, conservation. You just say it. You don't even have to say it in context of anything. People are already backing out. They're already backing up on it. So I think the big problem is not just individually, but a lot of times when, like Darren's saying, Darren's Native, I'm Native, and we say these things, and you're probably not Native out there, and you're saying, oh, they can say that because they're Native. No, you can actually have the same perspective we have, because without water, you're going to die. Without your mom, you're going to be sad. We talk about being relatives and it being a part of us. I mean, in the film it said the water runs through our blood. Well, you have blood and I have blood. So it doesn't really matter, like, oh, I'm Native and I can say these things and you can't. But you know what? You need water, air. You need everything I need to survive. So it can be just as sacred to you. It should be as sacred to me as it is to everybody. So I don't think you need to have an okay, or you don't need to have someone tell you that you need to conserve water. You should just be doing it because, like Darren said, it's going to affect our children, our grandchildren. If we sit around and just wait and say, oh, it'll take care of itself. Yeah, it will. Remember COVID-19? We all got quarantined. We all stayed home. What did the earth do? It replenished itself. It started healing. Okay, so maybe that's the solution. We just all have another pandemic. Or maybe we just all die tomorrow. And I always say this to my children. You know what? If we all died today and tomorrow, you know what? The earth, it's not going to miss us. It's going to celebrate. Life is going to go on without us. That's how simple it is. The simplicity of it sounds crazy, but it's really true. We're the ones that need this earth. We're the ones that need this water. Water doesn't need us. Think about that.
I don't know if I'll get into some of the further questions we're going to ask, but I think there was a point earlier about the can versus will, and are we going to solve this thing or not? And to me, that's a question that comes down to the legislature and taking action there. So I think, can we save the Great Salt Lake? Yeah, absolutely. It's actually not that difficult of a problem to solve. Like, it's just getting some water from one place to another. There's there's a lot of intricacies there, but it's not climate change, for instance. It's not a million billion variables that we've got to figure out. It's relatively straightforward. And so when I see it, I think we gloss over how simple it can be in some ways. And I do look at some of the actions that are being taken around. We just saw an announcement about $200 million of funding coming to the Great Salt Lake, which is going to be private funding, which is great. We need that money. We know that's kind of a drop in the bucket as far as the multi-billion-dollar problem this is going to be, though. And so I think we need to look at this as it's a public problem, and we're not going to solve it with private solutions that we continue seeing. And so the legislature is going to have to figure out where the will is going to come from, and I haven't seen that yet. Although it does sound like we fixed maybe part of this berm legislation that we're actually going to hear on Monday at the Capitol. So I think there is some positive action happening, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Let me just say one thing. Yeah. The $200 million private, that scares the hell out of me. Yeah. Because it allows people to say, oh, okay, well, they're doing something. Mm-hmm. But they're doing something to conserve. They're doing the same stuff. And the same stuff isn't going to do it. That's the problem. And let me tell you why tonight's so important. Why storytelling's so important, why music, art, poetry. They teach us here. When we feel here, we make change. And the world makes change. We don't make change because we hear 10 reasons why we should not use water. And That is gone in 5 seconds. But when you change here, through art, story, poetry, all of those mediums that really teach us in the right place, then we can affect change. How many public service announcements have you seen on TV that speak to our environmental stewardship? I haven't seen any yet. There was a commercial years ago with an Indian Native American man standing on the side of the road and the trash being thrown at his feet. And they pan up. You don't know it's a native till he pans up to his face and he has a tear going down his cheek because we littered. I read a Time magazine article about that months later, and they said it decreased littering in America by 80%. And the commercial didn't say a word. There wasn't one word said in the whole commercial, but it changed the way we did things. And it affected people, and they didn't litter anymore because they, oh my gosh, that was effective. Let's start tackling the problem that way. Let's start showing people, making them feel why. And instead of, well, Gail Miller just gave us a lot of money, so I guess we're good now. And that's not the answer. That's conservation. That's data. That's all the things that are not going to solve the problem.
Just real quick. With the making of this film, because we believe if we touch your heart as well as your mind, we can engage with you and maybe we can all care and take action. And so it was so interesting because this movie uses so many creative mediums, and we didn't want to be perceived as, oh, they're artists and they're going to the extreme with this. So we were extra, extra careful to use creative mediums to express 100% verifiable information in the film. And so hopefully we touched your heart as well as your minds tonight.
This is great. You all have basically addressed the questions on my list. We're running short on time. The last couple questions that I had can really be boiled down to what are the roles of the arts in pushing for change for Great Salt Lake? And also, what can we do? What can people be doing? And so I think, in closing, before we open it up to questions, anyone who wants to sort of answer that can just go down the line, starting with you, Eugene.
Yeah, what has just been said about art, I mean, that's like my philosophy of what I'm doing right now. I have my motto is Art Heals. I had a project called Art Heals, the Jingle Dress project that happened during COVID. And even my land installations and my sand works and everything I do is all deals with ceremonial elements of sage, cedar, sand, tobacco. And I've realized going all over the US and all over the world to show my art and to talk to people, I've realized a lot of my work that I've been able to share, it does change hearts. And I can get these people come in and they say, I'm atheist or, I'm this and that. But then when they look at the work, all of a sudden we have conversation. Because I always tell my kids and my wife, I tell them, I said, conversation happens when we're not on the same brainwave, but we're on the same heart wave. And I feel like art can do that to you. Art can make you feel comfortable, love, care. And once you have that and your mind is not with you anymore, then you don't care what politically affiliated you are with, or if you're native or not native, or if you believe in God or not. Your heart starts speaking. And when it starts speaking, that's when change happens. It might not change the world, it may change the person. It may change myself and perspective. But if we can all in this room realize what we're saying is really true and you can feel it with your heart, I think that's the part that's going to make change, because you're going to go out and you're going to say something to somebody, and that somebody's going to say something else. And I think that's the ripples that we use with the water to be able to go and do these things. So I believe art heals.
It doesn't matter. I'm not specific. If you want to just continue down the line, that's fine.
I've said a lot already, but I believe, well, I'm going to echo you, Eugene. I really believe that too, but I think the arts have a way of making us see the reality of what's going on. You see it, you hear it, you feel it, you remember it, it stays with you versus something being spoken. And so when it touches your heart and it stays with you, you can't unlearn what you just felt, so it's there. And then you can become more curious. I could say a lot more, but Sophia can say some too. But I think in terms of what can we do, there are a lot of things you can do. I think there's so many ways to reach out to our elected officials and just basically say, please help us save Great Salt Lake. Or if you really have questions, like you could say, hey, who gets to be at the table making decisions about this $200 million grant? Can we now have some places for experts, advocates, and Indigenous voices? That would be great. Thank you. And I think, again, to echo Jane Goodall, you have to believe you can make a difference, and that's hope. Hope is an action verb. And you have to get riled up and know that one action can create a ripple effect. So whether it's talking to your neighbors or us talking tonight, something sticks with you, please talk to a lot of people about what you experienced tonight, what you're curious about, how you would like to find out. On the tables outside, too, I have a sheet of as many organizations that I know about that are working to save Great Salt Lake and their websites, if you want to go that avenue to find out how you can get involved and help. And the other thing you can do is consider the planet in your decision making.
I will have to second many of the things that have been said before about the way that art works for us in our brains and our hearts emotionally. And I think in this particular moment, what motivates me as an artist is the ability to try and reproduce the sensations of being with the lake, of being directly in relationship with it. And that's where my art making in this activist movement really lies, in the sense that I want people to know what it's like to be with the lake, to be a relative to it. I don't think you can truly understand what we are losing spiritually with a sense of life and wonder that comes with living in Salt Lake unless you witness a sunset at the Great Salt Lake and then can understand what we're losing when that water dries up, when there are no more brine flies, when there are no more birds migrating from thousands of miles away, when there are no more brine shrimp for fourth graders to explore through mason jars. It's divine to be there. And if we were all able to experience that first, like in person, being with the lake, I don't think it would be as difficult to convince people with power and with money that that's where the water should be, that that's where the water wants to be. It's a terminal basin. That's where all the water should flow. There are like 100 or 150 or so saline lakes all across the world, and Great Salt Lake is one of them. Nearly, I think, between a quarter to a half of other saline lakes have dried up globally. A recent one was the RLC in the Eastern Europe. It dries and comes back and dries, but it's pretty much been dry since 2014, and it has completely changed the economic landscape of that area, and also no one lives there anymore. Nothing lives there anymore like it once did. And I think we need to take those lessons seriously.
Just let me say this really quickly. People will always forget facts and figures about history, about things. They will never forget how they felt, though, when they hear a story. And this young lady next to me, she wrote that, and she performed. When I watch her perform and I hear the words, I'm changed. It changes me. in a profound way. And so storytellers, she's a master storyteller. That's what's needed. And to have them youth storytellers, I think we're going to be okay. Not from the policies we've created so far, but from my students. And I think we're going to be okay because they care. And I think they're bought into what we're going to do here in the future. So hope we can hang on long enough for them to get it.
I guess in terms of the role of the arts, yeah, I really liked what Eugene was mentioning, and I think it's true that it kind of brings down our defenses in, including in maybe like spaces that aren't necessarily cohesive in terms of political values or backgrounds or whatever. I think the arts have that power of bringing down the defenses and being able to like create a cohesive moment of communion, if you will. And so I think it's, for me personally, and like in classrooms as a student, the things I remember are the things that touched me emotionally. All the other stuff, you know, it's prime real estate up there. There's not a lot of room for that many memories. So it's the stuff really that impacts me emotionally that I retain. In terms of what to do, I just really hope, you know, the fact that it's private money does possibly come with some strings attached. I'm hoping that it will not just be an over-reliance and overconfidence in technology, and that it's actually going to, that these strategies, this money somehow takes into account what kind of social change is needed. And really put some deep thought into that, and that's going to require consultation, right, with people that have been wiser than us historically, consultation with tribes, and co-management would be fantastic to see. I also think, you know, as a social scientist, I'm going to pitch for social science to play a big role, right, because this is a primarily cultural issue. And because it's going to take effort on the part of a lot of folks, you know, residents of the Wasatch Front, I think social scientists often get sidelined in situations related to the environment for natural scientists, and yet social scientists are going to be crucial here in trying to both understand the perspectives of folks and also carry out outreach, right, in terms of what can be done and what kind of initiatives can be promoted and built at a community level. And then the other piece that I feel like is so crucial is just teaching our kids in this area to love the high desert and to know the high desert, right? And to just see the beauty in this place as it is without intervention, right? And really taking pride in that, and I think that's going to be central. So at the educational level, but also at the family level, right? Which is, I think, where a lot of this begins. What are you talking to your kids about? What are you showing them? Are you taking them outside? Are you taking them to see a sunset at Great Salt Lake? So that they are transformed from a very young age and they carry that in their hearts into adulthood.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are all really important messages, and I would just remind people to keep reaching out to your legislators. That's I will implore people to do that every opportunity I get. We hear from a lot of people, but whether your legislator, wherever you live, agrees or disagrees with your perspective. I mean, I have a lot of constituents in my district that agree with me on really pushing the Great Salt Lake as one of the top issues that we need to get solving. It still helps to get that outreach so I can go up to the legislature and say, hey, this is actually what my constituents are advocating for. So please keep doing that.
Thanks so much. Please join me in a round of applause for our panelists today. And we are a tiny bit behind schedule, but I think we can still take some questions if folks are happy to do that. And then after that, Darren will close us out, and we'll have a reception out there. So we'll hope you will stay and continue the conversation. So if you do have questions, feel free to make your way to the microphones. If you're not able, if you've got any mobility issues and you want me to come to you or one of us to come to you, just raise your hand.
This is something to care about. I think something I've been struggling with recently, certainly a number of years, about 10-ish or longer, it doesn't feel to me anymore like on these issues, we're dealing with political parties that are dealing with really functional worldviews. So I can certainly call my legislator and talk to the legislator, whether they are on the political right or on the political left. When it comes to an issue like this, it feels to me like we can talk about conservation, we can say we care about it, but until the worldview is not the litmus test for every piece of legislation we do, everything we try to accomplish is economic growth. The reason we keep running into walls is because we say we care about it, but every time we try to do something about it, it runs into that litmus test. And then we end up with the same dysfunctional worldview from either political side, which is the way we do this is with more of the same, but with cooler tech. And clearly that's not working. And so I have to say I'm pretty much losing full confidence in our political process. And for someone in that position, I wonder what any of you have to say about where we go from here. And I'm not expecting the conclusive answer, but I think broadening our perspective to this notion that we're just not dealing with functional worldviews on either political side of the spectrum.
I don't have a good refutation of that, so then maybe that speaks to the accuracy of it. Yeah, I think we are in really, unprecedented times as far as politics goes, and how the party, we have a government shutdown right now. That's obviously going to, that is, I've been trying to find out how that is going to impact the day-to-day operations of state government, of the federal government. Well, the federal government's, they're shut, so they're not doing much, but that'll trickle down to to permitting here in Utah and things like that. And so, and I think, I'm a Democrat. I think my team's right on that, and we're fighting for people's health care and trying to put some guardrails around an administration that seems like they are a bit out of control. A bit is probably understating it. So I agree. I think I don't see a lot of give on these issues. Utah has a supermajority with the Republican legislature, and we need to. We've had some great candidates up here in the Logan area before, and I would definitely, I don't know if Patrick's in the room, but Patrick Belmont, I think, does some work here at USU, and hopefully he'll run for office again, so keep that in his ear. We need people who are just going to get beyond the party affiliation, and I'm a very partisan person right now because I see how problematic this has gotten and how dysfunctional it's gotten. So I want to get beyond that, and I think there's going to be a breaking point, and I don't know what that breaking point is. I don't know where, at what point our government is non-functional to the point where we can't come back from it. So trying to figure that out and hopefully get us past whatever that crux is, and then back to a place where we can function again, and that's going to take time and a lot of years. There's been a lot of damage done. So sorry, that's a very pessimistic message, but we have a long special session coming up on Monday where we're going to be dealing with some of these issues. So I'm buried deep in that.
I just want to say I can solve the problem. And my brother,
Little did you know, Rob.
My brother here will agree with me. If we want to solve the problem of the Great Salt Lake, put 10 Indigenous grandmothers in a room and give them 15 minutes and then do exactly what they say we need to do. And it'll solve the problem of the Great Salt Lake. Now, there might be some pissed off farmers. There might be some developers that are mostly in the legislature that are going to be angry, but they're going to get it back right, in right relationship. And that would solve the problem in 15 minutes. And we may get to the point that we have to do that, and we might.
It might take longer than that to solve the government issue.
17 minutes.
This is just a Great Salt Lake. I have, I get something to say about this. So yes, the government, it's broken and everything, and it's frustrating. Doesn't matter left, right, whoever you are, but I think that the thing is that I have hope. As a Diné person, I have hope because culturally, traditionally, when things don't go well, it takes the whole community to come together and to solve an issue. There's imbalance, someone feels it, takes it to the people, and you gotta realize that the communities aren't like we are right now, where Logan's here, and then all of a sudden you just go a few miles, you got another city, and then even like Provo and Salt Lake, and you have all these cities all pulled together. Back in the day, it was community, and then community way over here and over here. So we had to take care of the region, right? So why can't we do that here as people? Don't worry about left, right, whatever, but take care of your community. My HOA is the same way. I have to remind my HOA, hey, we're in a desert. We don't need great green grass. You know what I mean? And I have to admit, my fellow neighbors are 70 and above, and so it's hard because they're in a different age and they have different perspectives. But I bring it to them, and now I actually see change. I actually see them, making change, and that's where it starts. So if you're frustrated, like I am, start with your community. Start with your neighborhood. Make your neighborhood feel safe to be able to be here. Black, brown, white, doesn't matter. Make them feel safe. Make them feel comfortable. Because we can all write it out. We can make it. Yeah, okay, the Great Salt Lake's hurting, but Darren said it too. We have great youth coming up right now. They know what they want to do. So we just got to take care of our community, take care of who we have around us. Be nice to each other. Be good to each other. Don't worry about what flag is flying where or anything like that. Love everybody. And once that happens, change is going to happen. So they'll believe it. Have hope. Don't give up. Don't get too frustrated.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for this beautiful work, this beautiful effort in the film, and all the work that all of you are doing separately. I wanted to just bring the conversation back to establishing right relationship and relationship to the sacred, more specifically, which Darren always speaks so beautifully about. And as a starting point for the conversation, I wanted to just offer one little thing that I took from Robin Wall Kimmerer's The Serviceberry, and she just poses the question, what would it be like if we had a college of natural sources? And now every time I hear those two letters, re, it commodifies the beautiful, the source of life, the kind of, the planet's offerings. And I'm just thinking about little changes like that, and I'm sure you have more like a prayer in the morning every time you turn on the faucet. But things that we can do that establish right relationship just through awareness.
I think ritual can be something you make up, right? Like, if we want to be in relationship with the natural world, with others around us, we can define what those terms look like. We can decide what works for us in the moment, 10 years from now, what works for us as a family or as an individual. And magic is always there. We make it, right? We get to interact with the magic of the world all the time. And yes, we can look to others around us who have practices that we can learn from and follow, but we also all carry it already and can find our own ways, right? I go on hikes and collect dead plants and make bouquets and then set them on my counter for days. That's something I do for myself as a way to just know I'm noticing what's in season and what's out of season. I'm knowing what's I know what's drying and what isn't during these long, rainless summers. Yeah, I think that's what I would have to say about that.
Looks like we have one more question, and then we're gonna invite you.
Necessity is the mother of invention. I'm an engineer, and I'm sure I have a total different view than what you guys have presented. But there's a place in the world that has solved a water problem. And they had a drought. They've had a drought for 35 years, and that whole region has had a drought. And the other places in that region tried to solve it by just digging deeper wells. And it's mostly a desert area. And they solved it. They actually have a water surplus. They just refilled their biggest lake. They did it with desalination. If you go to get a drink of water there, right now, probably 85 to 90% chance it's desalinated water. The other thing is they invented, and this is all engineers inventing this, using the math, they invented drip irrigation, which is the most efficient way to water your plants and, farm. And so you actually measure exactly how much water a particular plant needs it and when it needs it, and you provide it then. So you're minimizing it. The other thing is they do reclamation of water. So every time you take a shower, every time you run the faucet, and whether you say a prayer or not, and every time you flush the toilet, over 85% of the water is reclaimed. The next closest country is about 7% reclamation. But again, my point is necessity is the mother of invention. So for 35 years, they've had to deal with it. They solved it. They have a surplus. They're selling to the other countries around it. And they become experts at desalination. There's some plants like in California when they are having a desalination problem, they hired that country to come in and solve it. But anyway, all I'm saying is these problems can be solved not, and this is my difference, not with the heart, but with the math, the engineering. So you get the right people in a room instead of those grandmothers, get a few engineers, and they've solved it already. We have an example of it, and they have a surplus. It can be done, and doesn't matter the politics or anything like that. The necessity makes it happen. I don't know if that's a question or just a statement.
I would just say both. Both and. Both and. So say we get the grandmas in the room and they say we need X, Y, and Z, then we get you in the room to do it. Here's an idea, so that was a poor example, but my point is yes and.
I love my grandma.
So I think working together versus one or the other illuminates my point about interconnectedness. So yes and.
We have a number of exhibitions that I hope you will enjoy, including there's an artwork by Eugene in this space where we'll be having refreshments, a water offering piece that we have in the museum's collection. So I would invite you to check that out as well. Oh yeah, go ahead, dear. I'm sorry. I just wanted to
No, you're good.
make sure we invited people to come.
I know, I'm a terrible timekeeper. I'm sorry, everyone.
Well, not like you've heard enough from me already, but last week I went to the Four Corners area and I sat in a hogan with some Navajo students on the campus of Utah State University. It was a beautiful experience. And we're sitting and talking about storytelling. And one of the students taught me a new word, hozo, or close to that. But it means to walk in balance, to walk in beauty, and to live in balance with everything around you. I thought a lot about that on my drive home from Blanding, which was about 6.5 hours. And I thought about, what does that look like to walk in beauty and to live in balance? And it just got me thinking about, how can I walk in beauty? I walk in beauty as I live with gratitude for everything in my life. I walk in beauty when I live in reciprocity, where I'm always looking to give back from what I take. I walk in beauty every time I hear somebody that I don't really agree with, but I listen and I try to see a different perspective, and I try to learn from those things. There's a million things that we can walk in beauty with, and my new commitment in this world is to walk in beauty and see the beautiful things, and try the best I can to ignore the ugly things, which are screaming louder and louder every day. And so we've given a great responsibility here to care for this earth. And I hope and pray that we can be better stewards, that we can start looking at the earth as a relative that needs to be nurtured and cared for, and not a commodity that could be bought or sold. And so I leave you with this blessing. May we walk gently. May we listen more intently with our heart. May we tend the sacred of everything that's around us. And may we forge a path forward that our children and their children will be happy to follow. I'm grateful for mentors up here and people I look up to, and grateful to be a part of this. So thank you, Amy. I've seen that movie like 20 times, and I could see it 20 more times. So thank you for coming tonight, and let's continue the conversation out there.
Hajona, Hajona Nasli, Hajona Nasli, Hajona Nasli, Hajona Nasli. That's what we do as Diné people when we end our prayers. We do it 4 ways, 4 directions. Say it 4 ways, 4 directions. It's the same thing what Darren said. It's about walking in beauty in 4 ways. So I just wanted to add that to Darren so that he can understand that's the 4 directions. So I hope you guys all can walk in beauty also. Thank you.
The way.
They shut us off already, automatically.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry, I didn't want to cut anyone off or cut it short, and we didn't have a lot of time. We went rogue. So you were working with a rogue team. We were rogue a little bit. It's a great piano. Thank you all. Coordinate. I know, I talk about.
Hope you guys will go to the reception for a minute.
Yeah.
It was really nice to meet you.
It was so nice.
Thank you.